Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. This channel has banged the drum for women's safety for quite some time. We demand that women's only spaces are for women only, not for trans. It doesn't matter what he's wearing or what he likes to call himself. If he's a man, and nothing changes that. This is why we demand that women only spaces such as changing rooms, female prisons, female wards in hospital, etc. are always reserved exclusively for biological women. And we have said that this sort of pretense of womanhood by men in order to gain access to women's spaces represents and poses an absolute real-world threat to the safety of women. And a lot of people have said that I'm talking rubbish and it wouldn't happen. Well, guess what? Let's look at this article. Now, of course, we've said many times that you can have no guaranteed safety of women while we have the pretense that these trans are anything other than men, especially when they're dangerous, criminal men. So we're going to read this. Transgender P, who was born a male but identifies as female, is caught duping staff for 71-day stay at a DV refuge centre for vulnerable women. So you have a centre set up for vulnerable women who are the victims of male DV. No man is supposed to be in there. This is supposed to be an absolute haven of safety for these vulnerable, hurt, emotionally fragile women. And a man lives there for 71 days. And worse, he is an absolute bottom-dwelling scum sucker of a man. Barely a man. Katie Dolotovsky, not his real name, 22, got into Leeds Women's Aid Refuge under a victim alias. Dolotovsky assaulted a 10-year-old girl in a supermarket toilet in 2018. His past came to light 10 weeks after he arrived and the police were called. A refuge guest and mother said knowing an abuser was there made her skin crawl. These are the people who so desperately want to pretend to be women so they can get into places where there's vulnerable women. This is a man who abuses 10-year-old girls and then breaks in or lies his way in to a woman-only space pretending to be a woman. This is awful. This is beyond the left. This is nightmarish. This is absolutely nightmarish for those women. Now, these women, remember, are vulnerable, emotionally disturbed, frightened of men, and then you get a P staying there. It's unbelievable. Anyway, a P duped staff into letting him stay at a DV refuge for women and children for 71 days. There's children here. And this is the only picture they could find. But just look at this weird. This is the sort of thing he is, because he's obviously mental as well. And look, wearing a childlike top. This is basically children's clothing. This man is wearing children's clothing. This is telling you all you know. And he is a convicted P as well. So, Katie Dolotovsky, 22, who was born male, got into the Leeds Women's Aid Refuge under an alias. His past was uncovered 10 weeks later in September, and managers are thought to have contacted the police straight away. I should hope so. The refuge for vulnerable women and children is frequently visited by domestic abuse campaigner and Spice Girl Mel B. Dolotovsky, whose offending dates back to 2018, was taken into custody, The Sun reported. Can't be looking at that stupid face. I don't know why do the press, why do the mainstream media, this gets me, why do the mainstream media hold by enabling these people by calling them she, he? The mainstream media are just as guilty of this. They're allowing this to happen by calling her and he, they're calling him a her, calling he a she. Let's not have she assaulted. This is awful. If the media could actually get on and do it, it might help. He assaulted a 10-year-old girl in a supermarket toilet and secretly filmed another in 2018 and has been in court several times since. Why is he not in prison? Why is he able to get into this? It was 4 years ago. He should have another 36 years from his 40-year sentence. A refuge guest and a mum of 3 said that as a victim of S abuse, the situation was triggering. I can believe that. She said she came to the refuge with her children as she thought it was somewhere safe, and it was horrendous discovering a P had been living there for months. She's bringing her children. She's vulnerable. She's bringing her vulnerable children into a refuge where there is a man with a history of being a P. Where's the safety of women? All these campaigners who sit there and push for this shit are sitting there going, oh, these trans people, they're victims, they need this, they need this. No, no, no. This is wrong. These people are mentally ill. These people are dangerous. These people represent a real threat. Their paraphilia always extends to children. Every single one of them is a P. The mum added, I saw him several times hanging around where the prams are parked. He is tall and skinny with long brown hair and always wore a surgical mask. The whole thing makes my skin crawl. Dolotovsky was said to have official papers supporting the alias he was going by, which he used to convince staff he was a victim of abuse. He stayed in the refuge's separate accommodation for trans abuse survivors. It has a shared garden. Chief Executive of Leeds Women's Aid Nick Peasewood said the centre was appalled that someone who had committed these crimes would be able to gain access to the refuge. Yes, instead of being where he should be, which is doing 40 years hard time in a tough prison, where some angry men may educate him on a very, very regular basis. He continued, or she continued, we are aware a criminal using authenticated identification could access any housing provider's services, and we're not unique in being manipulated in this way. No, they're not, and that's the point. It's happening all over the country. I guarantee in virtually every women's refuge there'll be a man in there somewhere with access to vulnerable women and children, because they all love children. Chief Executive at Women's Aid, Farah Nazir, said the situation was a priority alongside their abuse services. She added that extra security measures were being looked into as a result of the incident. It's simple. You want to come in, love, drop your knickers. I don't want to see anything that shouldn't be there in your knickers. Dolotovsky was 18, and I tell you what, and if there is something in there, get the scissors out and make sure there isn't any longer. Dolotovsky was 18 years old when he threatened to harm the 10-year-old girl if she didn't remove her trousers in a Morrison's in Kirkcaldy in Fife. But the child punched her way out and ran away. A month prior, Dolotovsky had secretly recorded a 12-year-old girl on the toilet in a Dunfermline Asda. Dolotovsky avoided jail. These are two separate child abuse events. And that shit is still on the streets. That shit needs to be educated. Permanently, perhaps. He represents an ongoing threat to children, and the courts did not feel fit to put him away. And then he goes in to a woman's refuge where there's children, and you only know there's one reason for that at all. Only one reason. Anyway, I'm going to come up because it's getting me very, very angry. What is truly sad and sickening is that there are people out there who will defend this man. They will say that he has got the right to be in that place. But those people, they can be ignored safely because they are wrong. This should not be allowed. This should not be stood for. The people of this country need to make sure that their politicians know exactly what is going on and exactly why this should be made illegal. No biological male, regardless of how he feels about the matter, should ever be allowed to identify as a woman to gain access to places like this. It is wrong, and it is a threat to the safety of women and children. And we all know exactly what these people are and exactly why they want to be in women-only places, especially women-only places where they can have access to children, because that ultimately is their final goal. I shall stop now. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what you hear and see on the channel, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notifications of future output. Leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, guard your children with your life, and goodbye.